Alright, so three goblins walk into a bar. The fourth steps over it.
Hey! At least so one out of every four goblins.
Yeah,
Right? That's the stat then?
apparently.
25% of all goblins. I feel like four goblins is enough of a sample size.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, worst case, like the fourth one hits the bar, the fifth can walk over the fourth.
Hello, friendos. This is Chain welcoming you back to Chain of Commander. And for this month of July's visit to the recruitment office, I decided this might be a good opportunity for us to kind of dip our toes into cEDH and take a gander at a deck that's been making splashes in the cEDH format. And to help us do so, I brought along a guest. Guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Beyond the Machina. I am a Magic the Gathering inspired artist, playmat, and a Magic the Gathering inspired artist who does playmats, proxies, t-shirts, the whole deal. But I am also I like to think, up and coming cEDH brewer and fairly notorious cEDH player when it comes to one deck.
And which deck would that be?
That deck is Krark and Sakashima Storm.
Krark and Sakashima. As I've heard many people affectionately call it, what was it, KRARKASHIMA?
I've seen it called Krarkashima, Siskel and Ebert, Sakrark, which is
That one, yeah, that one does not flow off the tongue nicely at all, does it?
Yeah. And then there's a bevy of other names for it.
Mm-hmm.
The name I have for the deck is Fed After Midnight.
Fed after midnight.
Fed After Midnight.
Fed after midnight. Like those
Gremlins.
gremlins, yeah. Oh, those 80s horror stories. All right.
I love them a lot.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we are not a horror story podcast. We're
not?
a deck podcast. No, I know. I lured you in with lies, like any good evil villain would do, and then I'm just gonna like strap you down and just make you do cEDH primers for the rest of your life.
Not that bad.
No, that's not the worst. I like to think of myself as a generous captive person.
A benevolent
captor.
god.
Yeah, a benevolent god. All right, so KRARKASHIMA here. Both of these relatively new commanders, both of them coming out of Commander Legends. Did you play anything in the cEDH world prior to this deck, or was this the deck that kind of got you into cEDH?
Prior to Krark and Sakashima, I had been playing cEDH for about a year and a half, 2 years. I was introduced more or less to the format by the ever amazing Scotty Knows MTG, or Scoots, with 8 O's. Scoots is such a wholesome person and a fantastic friend. He got me into it. Originally, I first played a Joyra Paradox Storm deck, which was pretty fun. Then Paradox Engine got banned. And then I did El Shatop for the longest time, and El Shatop was really fun. I just didn't find it the most consistent, and it seemed to lack some personality, which a lot of people think cEDH decks don't have personality. They're just the most optimized they can be. No, it's quite the opposite. They're overloaded with personality other than a few. But I played El Shatop, which I felt was kind of flavorless for a while. I enjoyed it at first, and then I was just like, I'm tired of it. And then I just shifted from El Shatop to Divergent Kaikar. And that was pretty fun. But it also just seemed kind of flavorless after a little while. And then Krark and Sakashima got spoiled and released, and my buddy Ken, Stacked EDH, on the Playing with Power Discord was like, hey, I think these two have some potential. And I'm like, and I was on board. Like, right then, right there. I've been part of the Siskel and Ebert Krark and Sakashima Discord ever since. And I have my own variation of the deck. I have a budgetless variation, which is at about 5K. I have a $100, roughly, variation that was featured on Playing with Power on one of their Budget Brew episodes. And I have my Pride and Joy, my most original version of the list, a $500 version, which is a published and promoted deck on budgetbrews.club, which is a website that promotes budget cEDH decks for people looking to get into it, or people who like they acknowledge and are okay with proxies, but they want to have like a physical deck so that like their LGS won't have a problem.
Mm-hmm. And that's the version of the deck we're going to talk about here, the $500 one.
It is.
Just full disclosure for us here, Chain of Commander is proxy friendly, especially when people are going into the world of cEDH. There's no reason why you should be spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to play a card game for fun. It's just unreasonable. Proxies are fine.
Even my $5,000 Krark and Sakashima, the deck that's like the primary one I have like in my hand more or less, it's half its proxies.
Exactly. And then like, I work with you on a couple proxies that I've been gathering for my cEDH deck that I'm building. Proxies are fine. But we're also not a proxy podcast. We are a Deck Tech Primer podcast. So,
we're not?
I know, right? I lure you in with lies.
First it was the horror movies, then it was the proxy one, now it's this.
I am a smooth talker, not gonna lie. But
Apparently.
I say anything to get you onto my show.
Apparently.
Yeah. So, clearly you were an early adopter of this particular pairing. What about it called to you? Like, clearly you like Storm. You went through all the Storm commanders. I like Storm too.
I haven't gone through all the Storm commanders, but
you went through a lot of them.
Yeah.
But what about this like really spoke to you as far as a deck? Why did you end up with
So,
Krakashima?
I've always been a big fan of Storm. My first dip into it was I did Modern for a while. I did Grishelbrand, which isn't technically a Storm deck, but it works kind of like one to a degree.
Yeah.
And then I did Modern Storm, like Gift Storm, for a while, and that was really fun. And then Joyride Cheerios was like, oh, that's Storm. I like Krark and Sakashima Storm the most, though, because it's loaded up with personality, and it seems like it shouldn't be able to win. Because the main gimmick of the deck is you have Krark of 1,000 Faces. I mean, kind of. You have Krark the Thumbless, who says, and I quote, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, return that spell to its owner's hand. If you win the flip, copy the spell. And you may choose new targets for the copy. And then the other commander is Sakashima, who, when he ETBs, he clones. He becomes a clone of something. And he also says the legend rule does not apply to permanents you control. So, while Krark usually would seem like moderate downside, moderate upside, just 50-50 chance, when you copy him a bunch, a 50-50 chance turns from 50-50, I might get it, I might not, to almost 100% if you have enough Krarks. Like, for the outcome you want, which...
Yeah, because it's 50-50 for the first one. As soon as you get a second copy, you're at 75%. Then if you get a third copy, you're at
like
87.5. Yep. And so on and so forth, getting divergently closer to the limit that is 100%. And that's before we even get to thumbs at all. But yeah, so the more cracks you have, the more cracks you have at your spell resolving.
Yeah, but because of that, the way you can make the stack go and how you can play the deck a variety of different ways is absolutely absurd. So you could have just 2 Krarks out, which it's 75% chance of getting what you want, which is usually A heads and A tails. You play something and either you could get nothing back, this is unfortunate, but whatever. You could get 3 versions of the spell, the original and the 2 copies, or you get what you want. Which is
at least 1 copy, and it bounces back to your hand.
2 of those, 2 out of 3, are absurd. Being, if you play a ritual, like Pyretic or Desperate, which let you loop if you have that many copies, then you feasibly could go infinite with a ritual and 2 goblins who make you flip coins. Which sounds absurd, and it is absurd.
However, it's important to note, it's not a deterministic loop, so you can't just demonstrate a loop and do it over and over again.
No, you
have to flip a lot of coins.
The only point when it becomes deterministic is if you have like 4 of them.
Yeah, and even then, people are going to be like, play it out. Play it out. They'll hope you fizzle.
Most people won't make you play it out once you have like 5 or more. But some will, and it's very funny, because they make you... They soon realize, oh, I get it. All right, we'll be here a while.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
I understand that could be agonizing for some players. Other players, seeing them not get the deck and not understand what it does, is like, oh, Krark doesn't sound that good, and Sakashima, that's alright, but, like, whatever. Well, they don't get it. And then the minute you get 5 or more of them, they're like, oh.
That's because, in their defense, it's not the most intuitive interaction. You
It's
don't
not.
think, oh, if it bounces to their hand, they'll also get the copies going forward if they, like, flip out accordingly. But you do, because it looks for last known information. Even if the first instance bounces it to the hand, the second instances have the potential to copy it as well.
Yeah.
So once they figure out that interaction, though, it does represent a very, very, very powerful sequence of events. And what are some of, like, what would you say? You already brought up the rituals, but what are some of the other key cards that are, like, just super fun to cast over and over again within a turn?
So I did this with my budget list deck, not with the 500 one. But I got a turn 2 win because I was able to get out Krark and Sakashima out turn 1 by dropping various mana rocks. And then turn 1 I had Krark and a Stormkiln Artist. And then just had ramped those out with mana rocks. And then turn 2 I got Sakashima. And I was able to loop a Thought Scour, which is a blue and target player mills 2, and then it lets me draw a card.
Yep.
So, whether it got sent back to hand or not didn't matter. Because of Stormkiln Artist giving me a treasure every time I cast or got a copy of a spell. So I looped that like 7 some times, over and over again, at instant speed. So people tried to, like, do something, and I'd be like, nah, Thought Scour. And just do the whole routine. I did it 7 times, drew out a bunch of cards in my hand, and alright, cool, great. And then I failed, like, I got a final fail or whatever, so, like, 3 copies of it. But at that point, I had drawn so many cards on turn 2 that it's like, alright, well, I'm just going to play a spell, get a bunch of Stormkiln Artists. I played, like, a Storm spell and got a bunch of Stormkiln Artist treasures. And just played more copies and then found a way to win with a Grape Shot on turn 2.
The classic Stormkill Grape Shot.
I could loop a Thought Scour, which is a weird thing to do.
That's definitely pretty cool. But that's like it. So you do that, you just cast a spell a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
Especially, that what was it? That Stormkiln Artist being able to produce a treasure every time you cast or copy an instant or sorcery.
Yeah.
And all Krark does is copy instants and sorceries for you.
Yeah.
It's like
that trick could feasibly be pulled off on, like, turn 3 in the 500 deck.
Yeah, if you do that with any 1 mana spell, you're just instantly netting your mana back from it in that treasure token.
Yeah.
So a very powerful interaction. Very
any 1 mana instant that draws you a spell is hilarious.
Yeah, because then you can just get through your whole deck here, and then, like, you're digging through your deck. What are the key payoffs here? What are you drawing to in the best case scenario?
So, what makes the deck also, in my opinion, really fun is it has a lot of different payouts. Like, it has the obvious payouts. It has Grape Shot. It has Mind's Desire. The 500 build has Aether Flux or Reservoir. Like, those are, like, easy ones. You're like, oh, I understand. In the budgetless build, it has Brain Freeze, Underworld Breach, LED. So, like, those are, like, oh, yeah, those are, like, obvious payoffs. But, like I said, with Thought Scour, you could loop Thought Scour and deck someone out, which I've gotten close to doing. If you have enough red mana and enough Krarks on the field, you can kill the table with a Lightning Bolt. Just loop.
I have seen...
Yeah.
I've seen people kill people with lightning bolts in actual casual EDH before. It's quite the sight to behold, really.
Yeah, looping lightning bolt is such a bizarre thing to do, but it's hilarious. One of the other really funny wins is, so there's the Twin Flame Dual Caster combo, where if you have a creature on field, you cast Twin Flame, in response, Dual Caster Mage enters, causes a copy of Twin Flame, change the new target to Dual Caster, and rinse repeat. I was able to pull that off, not with dual caster, but with 3 Krarks and like a Burgie. Like a Burgie god of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I had like a copy of Krark as Sakashima. With Sakashima dead, but I had the Krark as Sakashima, so like it didn't matter. And I was able to just twin flame loop on Krark. And then I killed the table out with, I think it was like 1,600 Krarks.
It's a lot of Krarks.
So the payoffs are innumerable and silly.
I mean, the whole deck. Let's just be real here. The whole deck is quite silly.
It is. I once emergent zoned an Aetherflux Reservoir, so I gave like spells that turn flash because of emergent zone.
Mm-hmm.
I played Aetherflux Reservoir and looped a Jessica's Will at the end of someone's turn, and then Grape Shot win. I didn't
Jessica's
need.
Will another. Go ahead.
I didn't need to Grape Shot win with Aetherflux Reservoir. I just chose to at the end of someone's turn, when all 3 of those cards should not usually be played.
I mean, that's where the fun is, though, right?
Yeah,
to do things you're not normally supposed to do with cards.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I think it's also worth mentioning. We've talked about pretty much the engines, the payoffs, and all that stuff. The deck's got a lot of different directions you can kind of take it depending on what the situation needs. Like you said, you can make it just a bunch of tokens and swing with them. You can kill people with direct damage. You can mill them out. You can pretty much use any of the win cons you want. But there's one little artifact in this deck, other than Aetherflux Reservoir, that I think we would be behooved to bring up. And that is Krark's Dismembered Digit.
Krark's other thumb. If you would roll a dice, you roll 2 of those dice instead and choose the result you want.
No, the other Dismembered Digit.
Krark's toe hasn't been printed yet.
Oh, darn it.
I do. Krark's thumb.
That's the one.
Yeah, Krark's thumb. Thankfully with Krark and his thumb, originally this deck was not acknowledged as a cEDH deck because it was running thumb, which it seems innocuous. It seems like why is it in there? It seems like a gimmick, and it is a gimmick by the term.
Whole deck's a gimmick, yeah.
But pretty much it makes it so that with your regular Krark, which would be a 50-50 chance, is now like a 67-something chance to get what you want. Because it is only one trigger that's split into 2. I mean, I'm probably getting the math wrong, but it's less advantageous to have thumb out than to have 2 Krarks out. But if you have 2 Krarks out and 2 thumbs out, then it's absurd.
Yeah.
Because then the options of picking what you want. So instead of flipping a coin twice and that's what you get, you flip a coin 4 times. Pick one of the 2 of the first one, then one of the 2 of the second one. Go nuts. And it's very funny.
So it's essentially an assurance agent to make sure that once the thumb's out, once Krark's out, the coin flipping is just for show at that point, because essentially the odds of you not getting the results you're looking for are astronomically low. So,
yeah,
just a little bit of sure, and it's actually that sort of consistency which pushes this from a super hyper variant high powered casual deck into a legitimate cEDH contender.
And then with new cards like there's a wizard that like double triggers on, or it's a human shaman, Harmonic Prodigy, where that also acts as a thumb.
Harmonic Prodigy. Which set was that one from?
Modern Horizons 2.
Modern Horizons 2. I'm gonna have to pull that one up here. I'm not seeing it on the list right now.
I updated the list with it in because like I forgot to like. That's one that I needed to put in.
All right, Harmonic Prodigy. Prowess whenever spell and ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. And then Krark is
he's a wizard.
Yeah, so it does. It's essentially an additional crack on the field or additional thumb. No, I think functionally it's an additional crack.
Yeah.
Point is, it has the consistency.
Yeah, I'm looking for a card to cut here, because like that, it's that good. That and Veyron, because Veyron does the same thing. Veyron Voice Duality.
Yeah, Veyron's pretty bonkers, because that's the one that Josh Lee Kwai played on game nights, and he was going off with that alone, and that was just a not overpowered, quote unquote, not overpowered deck. This deck, it's pretty bonkers, and obviously I'll put a deck list in the description for you folks at home to take a look. It will be updated with this new card. We updated this deck on this video.
Yes,
we're helping.
I forgot her Harmonic Prodigy.
But that deck list will be down there at your reference, and pretty much at this point, Beyond the Machina, or as I said until I actually realized what I was doing, Beyond the Machina.
It's Beyond the Machina, actually. It's Beyond the Machina.
Yep, Beyond the Machina, because now I know how to read. If you want to take one look at the camera there, or whatever face cam you're using, and just speaking to the folks at home, if you want to explain why maybe just maybe, especially to those who haven't dipped into cEDH yet, why they would want to try out KRARKASHIMA as a cEDH deck.
So, I recommend trying Krark and Sakashima out, especially for cEDH, because it's really easy to get into and build. I built a $100 version of it and played it competently to the point where it threatened to win and almost did win on Playing with Power, which is one of the more notable cEDH YouTube channels. And it can be built pretty cheaply and easily, and then built up progressively with minimal value. And even the $500 list, if you're a enfranchised Magic player, somebody who has that sort of capital or has been playing Magic for a decently long while, you can trade or buy some of the cards pretty easily. The hardest card in the deck to get, which is hilarious, is Krark's Thumb. Krark's Thumb and Rhystic Study are probably the hardest cards in the deck to get, just because of sheer value and hard to get. And this deck made Thumb hard to get, which is unfortunate, but a little funny. But the deck is admittedly a little bit hard to pilot, but it's that fun sort of challenge where if you like spellcasting, and you like really quirky, gimmicky, but decks full of personality and ways to play, I highly recommend Krark and Sakashima. It is a joy. Absolute joy.
Absolute joy. Yep, as you said, it's pretty accessible. I'll put links to pretty much actually all three versions of his decks down there for you, so you can all have a building point for whatever your budget may entail. It's a challenge. It's not like it's just a gimme win, but it's a challenge, and therefore you feel like you earn your victories. And like it's got a lot of personality to it. It's a new style of deck that we haven't really seen before these two commanders came out. And Beyond the Machina, I thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I am certain you convinced at least one person out there to give it a try, and if you've done that, you have done KRARKASHIMA proud.
I sure hope so. I love the deck very dearly. My budget build is probably one of the proudest decks I've ever built, just in my entire career as a Magic player. Not even a career, just time playing Magic. Krark and Sakashima has brought me some of the most fun I've had in Magic. Now, it's probably pissed off more players than some other ones, but yeah, I mean, it's fun.
That's all we want. We just want fun. It's a card game. We're just here to have fun.
Yeah, but thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for joining me today, and all you folks at home, thank you for joining us. So at this point, if you wanted to say bye.
Bye.
Boy, howdy, that was an absolutely crazy deck, and it was an absolutely fantastic with the Beyond the Machina to talk about it, and just the ways he took it in so many different budgets, so accessible to whatever level of Magic you're playing for. At this point, I would like to also thank my Patreons. Their names should be in front of my face. And as always, if you want your name in front of my face at the end of my episodes, definitely consider going to patreon.com/chainofcommander and signing up. There is a tier for every budget and for every amount of involvement you would like with the channel. If you want to see me talk to more EDH personalities about some of their favorite decks, I should have a playlist right here of all my recruitment office episodes, so feel free to go through and give them all a gander. And beyond that, thank you all very much for joining me today, and I'll see you guys again in the future.